welcome to Diamond Delight Edibles. My name is Liz if this is the first time you stop by, and for the rest of you guys, welcome back. Thank you for joining me. So today we're not going to be cooking, but I do have something really exciting to show you. So one question that I always get asked pretty much on every video is, well, what are the milligrams or what is the potency? And I don't generally answer it because I don't know. Without knowing the starting percentage of your TH flower, using those calculators is just a guessing game. So you can pretty much put in, anywhere between 15 to 21, 24%, and come up with almost any calculation that you want to. The one true way to know the potency of your infusions, and therefore being able to calculate your edibles correctly, is by testing. So what I'm going to be showing you today is a cannabinoid and analyst test kit by Cannalytics. In North America, it's under Cannalytics. In Europe, it is under AlphaCat, and I'll have both links for you below. So what this is an actual scientific test kit that you could use at home. So the one that I'm going to be showing you today is the standard test kit. It comes in various sizes to meet anybody's needs, and the price point for starting for the standard kit is very reasonable, I believe. You can check that out for yourself. So now just a couple things to let you know about the test kit. The standard test kit does 20 to 25 tests. However, that means doing multiple tests at one time. So this isn't for doing individual testing. So basically you'd be doing, to get the most out of your kit, you would want to be doing 4 to 5 analysis per testing. Otherwise you're not going to get the most out of it, or you can order extra supplies if you find that you end up just doing single or double testing. With that said, I'm going to get into all the equipment that is involved. And what I am going to be testing today is flour, tincture, and two different butters. Now, I've been wanting to do this for a long time. So I always believe that we're over decarbing. So my first butter here is how I made it was a half a cup with 4 grams of flour. I decarbed it first, and then I infused it in my Levo at 150 for 2 hours. And then with my second one, I did not decarb it beforehand. I did the exact same measurements, half a cup to 4 grams, and I did it at 200 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours. And you can see the color difference here. I'll bring it up closer. You can really see the color difference. This, where am I here? This is the one that I double decarbed, which I'm calling double decarbed. And this is the one that I did as single, so I decarbed while infusing. So I'm really curious to see if there is going to be any difference in the testing. Let's see. And the last thing that I'm going to be testing is some canna sugar. When it comes to testing edibles itself, I recommend that you basically, it's good for baked goods or savory foods, real foods. I found with candies, especially because it has syrups in it, it doesn't break down that well. There's 2 limitations to what the test kit cannot test. It cannot test honey, and it cannot test vegetable glycerin. That's it, vegetable glycerin. So those 2 compounds it cannot test for. But everything else, tinctures, your herbs, everything else, your flours, etc., your baked goods, whatever, you can test on those. So let's jump in. Before I jump into the equipment, I am going to explain how the test kit, how the testing actually works, the scientific part. It'll be a little boring for a moment, and then I'm going to get into the what actually is in our kit, and then we're actually going to start testing.
Cannalytics supply is based on the AlphaCat testing protocol, which utilizes high-performance thin-layer chromatography for the purposes of analyzing the presence of cannabinoid in cannabis-derived samples or cannabinoid-derived products. It has been scientifically validated by the University of Leiden in the Netherlands in accordance with the ICH guidelines to provide fast and accurate results. It gives quantitative percentages of CBD, CBN, THC, THCV, CBG, and CBC. It also analyzes the acid counterparts such as THCA and CBDA, which provide insight into the sample's age and quality of curing. It's a portable test kit and can be taken anywhere to test flowers, extracts, kief, hash, and other concentrate extracts, providing data necessary to accurately calculate dosages for your labeling product.
All right, so what's included in your standard test kit are 25 Eppendorfs, and those are those little vials with little lids on them that you use for collecting your samples. Eppendorfs, what a silly name. It comes with your, to hold your little Eppendorfs or your little vials. I'm just going to call them vials. Comes with pipettes for collecting your test fluid. What I recommend is you need 1 and 2 milliliters, and it's very difficult to see the lines once you get liquid into the pipettes. So what I've done is I've marked off the 1 and the 2 milliliter marks there with a Sharpie. I don't know if we can see it on camera. There you go. It just makes it a lot easier for you to see when you get liquid into them. So I've pre-marked my 3 of them. Comes with 40 milliliters of test fluid, 5 THC test plates. Be sure not to touch these with your bare hands, so always keep them in the package until you're ready to use them, and make sure that you use the nitrate gloves that come with it. So these are nitrate gloves. They are not latex gloves or silicone. So very important for that. So it comes with a pipette. That is for your microdosing, so that you're able to collect very small sample accurately. Comes with 25 tips for it. Your processing jar. 5 dyes, which come in little mini Eppendorfs. They're hard to see, they're really tiny. Comes with your tray. A little beaker here for 25 milliliters of water. And then we've got our rulers, our THC and our CBD rulers. Showed up on some white here. And that's what we'll be using to measure. Now, the test that we're going to be doing will allow us to measure up to 40%. However, I know that mine's not going to be anywhere near that high, but you can test up to 40% with this. There's also other calculations in the book that you can do, so that I believe that you can test higher than that. Not 100% sure on that, but I do know it, definitely with what we're doing, you can go up to 40%. And I said there's the one for the THC and your CBD. I showed them the other way around, but they're both pretty much the same. And that's everything that's in the test kit. What you will need extra is a scale. A precise scale would be very helpful. Just some paper and a Sharpie pen or permanent marker. And paper's just to write down your samples so that you don't get them mixed up or confused later on, and you know exactly what's what. And that's, and a bunch of paper towel you want to have on hand. Also, one very important thing, you want to do this in a very well ventilated room, so you want to make sure that you have a fan going at all times. If by chance you spill some of the test fluid, make sure to sop it up immediately and leave the area. Do not inhale the test fluid. Very, very not good for you. So please do not inhale. And that's everything for that. Let's get started on our testing. The first step that you're going to want to do is to collect your samples. Just to save time and not to bore you guys, I've gone ahead and pre-measured my samples already. So number 1 is going to be my flour. Number 2 is tincture. Number 3 is my double decarb butter. Number 4 is my single decarb. And number 5 is my sugar. Now, for measuring these, if you're doing liquids, it's really easy. Mark off, there's the 0.1. So the amount of sample that you need to collect is a very small amount. It's 100 milligrams or 0.1 gram, or if you have a 2 decimal scale, 0.01 grams. Now that can be very difficult to measure out that small of amount. So when you're measuring out your flour or any kind of dry items, you want to take your little vial or your Eppendorf, put it on your scale to weigh it. So mine is 0.70. I'm not going to tar it. I'm just going to remember that it's 0.70. Take a little smidgen of my sugar. Don't need very much at all. Put it on the scale. And I have 0.73. So if you go a little bit over, you're okay. You just don't want to be under. That way you'll be able to measure out the small amount. Unless you have a really, really precise scale, you can't, it's pretty much impossible to weigh up 0.1. So that's the easiest way to weigh up dry materials. Anything liquid is even easier. You have a 0.1 mark right on the tube here. So again, I mark it off with a Sharpie, and you just fill it to that 0.1 mark. Like so. Alright, so as I said, I've got all my samples here. So the first thing we got to do is add our test fluid. So once we start working with our chemicals, we want to put our gloves on. So I'm just going to pop open my little lids here. And we are collecting 1 milliliter of the test fluid for each sample. And you should close the lids right away. Should have done that. Close the lids right away. As I said, you don't want to be inhaling this stuff. Immediately put your lid back on that test fluid. Close up your lids. And we're going to shake these for 10 seconds. And then we're going to allow them to sit for 2 minutes. While we're waiting the 2 minutes there for our samples to process, we're going to set up our test plate. So remove 1 test plate. As I said, you never want to touch the test plates with your bare hands. So you want to make sure that you've got the white side up, so it'll be shiny, and you want the dull, so you want the white side. You want the dull side up. And take your Sharpie, and you're going to write, either write 1 to 5, or A, B, C, D, E, or make 5 dots, whatever you want. What you want to make sure is not to do it too close to either of the edges, because you need a little space for the dyes to spread. So if you do it too close to the edge, you're not going to get the full sample on there. So you want to make sure. I recommend not doing 5 for your first test. Do 4 or 3 so that you get the idea of it, and then you can go to 5. I've done this a couple of times, so hopefully I can do the 5. My sharpener not working so good. Good enough for what I can see. I don't know if you can see my... I'm going to get a better marker and try and redo that. 1 second. Okay, so I've marked them with a pencil, so you can see now the 1 to 5, so not going too close to the edge there. So hopefully that'll line up. I don't have it too close. I think I'm good. And our samples are ready to put onto our plate. So now we're going to be using our pipette, and you're going to want 5 individual tips so we don't cross-contaminate our testing samples. So I'm going to go my 1 through 5, make sure that I have my corresponding numbers. Let's not do our silly stoner thing. So with the tips, just slide on. Make sure you get it to the end there. And then you want to make sure that it is set to 0.1. And to change the amount, you just turn the dial on top here, and that changes the number. So we want 0.1. There we go. All right. And then, as I said, the tip, you just put on this side button here is how you release your tip. And then to put it on, you just slide it on like so. There we go. Now collect each sample. So this one is my herb. So we place it in. You're going to push down on the button here, and then slowly lift it up. Place it into the sample, down, and lift. And then with a steady hand, you want to make a single dot. You want to try and make sure to get a single dot if you can, because otherwise you'll see the sample it kind of spreads out. Change my tip. This is my tincture. And it's very important that you hold it at a 90-degree angle. You don't want to do it like this or like this. You want to make sure it's straight up and down. I use my finger just as a guide to hold it in place. I don't have very steady hands. This is my double butter. And my last one is sugar. And there we go. You're not going to see anything. Your samples are going to disappear there. So you're really not going to see anything. Now, if your flour is not decarbed, you are going to want to preheat your oven to 300 degrees and pop this plate into the oven. Put it on a tray, pop it into the oven for 5 minutes to decarb the herb. What I'd recommend is to actually do that for your herb and then add the rest of the samples once your plate is cooled. I already decarbed my herb, so I don't need to do that step. So our next step is going to be processing. So take your jar, off the lid, and now we're going to want 2 milliliters of our test fluid. Now the best way to do it so you get the proper 2 milliliters is to make sure that it's completely empty. Place the tube down, squeeze it, and slowly pull it up, and that should pull you up to 2 milliliters. So put the 2 milliliters into your processing jar. Make sure it all goes in there. Then you take your plate. Now at this point, you do not want to move your jar. Make sure that you don't touch it. You're going to place your plate into it, like so, on an angle. So it's going to sit like that. Hope you can see that. Said you don't want to move it around. Put the lid on it. So we're going to let that sit and process for 25 minutes. So I'm going to set my timer and we'll be back when 25 minutes is up. All right, so our 25 minutes are up. Take off your lid gently. Take the plate just by the very top there. Put your jar on some folded up paper towel. Make sure you have a nice little stack of folded paper towel. Place the plate on the edge of the jar. Close up the jar, and we're going to let that dry for 3 to 5 minutes. Now at this point, you won't see anything on the plate. It's still going to be white, so don't worry. Things are happening. You just won't see it yet. Now while we're waiting for our test plate to dry, what we can do is get our dye ready. So you're going to take one of your little dye capsules here. It's tiny little things. So what I do, so you want to measure out 25 milliliters in your little beaker here. And what I do is I put my dye into the beaker. And use a little stick here to make sure that it is all well dissolved and around, mixed through the water. and then gently pour it onto your plate. You don't want to get this stuff anyplace else. It dyes red anything. It's crazy. Oh, got that. We got our dye into our plate there. So I'm just going to wait for that to dry, and then we'll see some magic happen. So our test plate is dry. Now take your tray, and we're going to put it face down into our tray for 1 second. So you're just going to lay it down and basically pick it right back up again. So lay her down, 1/1000. You pick her up, lay her back onto against your jar here, and we're going to allow this to dry and process for 8 to 15 minutes. But as you can see right away, things are already happening. Woo! So exciting! That's it. I'm going to let that process there for 8 to 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and measure it up. All right, our test results are in. So let's have a looky here. Now, what I did is I ended up doing a secondary test, a secondary test plate, because I did not lay the dots quite correctly on this one. And I thought I could lay a second one. However, you shouldn't do that because it doesn't come out quite as good. So it is literally one dye, everything's one per. But the results turned out better on the THC. So I'll show you the two here. And also what happens when you put them too close together. See, my dots kind of came a little too close together here. So that's why you need to learn about how to space them out correctly. So what you do is you take your THC ruler, and that is our THC dot there, and you fit it between the two lines there on the ruler. So we take it and we scoot it along until it fills right in between the two. Okay, you can see here, the flour is fitting in the 5%. So for the test that we did, the 0.1 grams, we double this number. And so my THC in my flour is actually 10%. Now my tincture, which I made with completely different flour and completely different amounts, I used almost an ounce to 1.5 cups. So my tincture here, it was the second one, and it is measuring at about 9.5%. So that's 19% in my tincture. The butter is measuring at 9. So my butter that was double decarbed is 18. And the one that I did a single comes out a little bit less. It's coming out at about the 7. But the difference here is it holds more of the secondary cannabinoids. So if you're brewing butters or your oils for medicinal purposes, the secondary cannabinoids can be very beneficial to you. So you may want to look at just brewing your butter, doing your decarb during your brewing. So it won't be quite as strong, but you will get more of the secondary cannabinoids, which could be more beneficial to you. And then last but not least, our sugar, which seemed to come out very weak. Now my sugar, I did 1 cup to 1/4 cup of tincture. So I didn't expect it to be very strong. And that is measuring out at about just a little over 2%, so it's about 4%. And that's all our testing there. And as I said, your bottom dots here are your secondary cannabinoids. The first plate shows them a lot clearer. That's why you don't run a second on the dye, because it comes out much too dark and not clear enough. So there you go. And again, you can see for the butter that was not decarbed beforehand, holds a lot more of the secondary cannabinoids for you. So with this test kit, now you can see exactly what is in your infusions and how much and how to properly dose your edibles going forward. As well as in the instruction manual, it does explain to you how to calculate the acids as well as the secondary cannabinoids. So have a look in the instruction booklet for more information on that. Now, if you have any specific questions about testing and what it does, etc., I highly recommend that you direct those questions to the company themselves. Other than really demonstrating this and kind of what this stuff does, I don't have that much more information for you. The company will be able to much better answer those questions for you. So again, I will put their links down below to make that easy for you. All right, so that is everything that I have got for you today. I hope you enjoyed that demonstration. And if you have any comments or questions, general questions, please don't hesitate to put them down below. But please, any questions specifically or scientific, please direct to the company. All right, so you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining me.